You've decided to fire me because I was in the hospital? Miss your wedding dinner tasting then, posted by Lika Y. This happened when I just graduated university. I had my main job over the weekend, which paid the living, and a side job at a large mobile phone and broadband selling company, basically retail, but with phones. The shop was located inside a larger retail store as an island in the middle, and of course, a lot of people didn't know about it, and didn't exactly visit our store to buy a contract or an upgrade. Instead, they would go to the store on the high street, which was a lot nicer and bigger compared to our island. A few important details about the store. The working times are usually 9 till 2000 hours on the weekdays. Tills have to be shut at 8 p.m., otherwise it causes issues with accounting. Staff members, unless they're warehouse, cannot stay past 8:10 or 8:15 due to insurance reasons, and only the managers can lock the store up. Warehouse can stay later and they have their own exit, however it can't be used by those who are not working in the warehouse. When you start and finish, you have to put the times in a special machine which compares them to your rota, same when you go to lunch. If you finish earlier than you're scheduled, then the machine will automatically put it as unauthorized absence. The other option is putting it as sick. You cannot take holiday on the day, and the times of the rota cannot be changed on the day either. So you can't put someone as starting at 9 and change the same day as the starting at 10, as it wouldn't allow you to. If you forgot to clock out, the extra time will be counted as overtime and only the manager can amend it, but they cannot make it that you worked less than what's on the rota. However, it's also a lot easier to amend the times on the same day, as if you're trying to do it the next day, you'll need the details of the member of staff to do it, like their memorable word and so on. Also in our island store, you must have at least 2 employers working during the same hours as per company policy. It was my last day at said store. My manager decided to let me go because I didn't attend a shift due to being in the hospital, and I was still on my probation. I was told that I still have to work the notice period, which was 2 weeks. My manager, I'll call him Dan, had to create rotas 2 weeks in advance as per company policy. He can change the rotas up to last Friday of the week, meaning that he can change next week's rota on the Friday before, but not after. So, Dan scheduled me on my last day on a 1700 to 2100 hour shift when my usual shifts are 16 to 20. I have asked him if this was correct both personally and in the team group chat, and he confirmed it. Dan was also the type of those whiny managers who don't do anything but complain about everything, and they don't bother to train you or show you the ropes. So I kinda knew he made a mistake, but decided not to mention it. Cue malicious compliance. Friday rolls on, and I'm hungry, so I decided to have a late lunch before my shift starts. I'm putting the order through and notice Dan is trying to call me. I decline. I finish my order to feel that Dan is trying to call me again alongside with a few texts received from him. I decide to reply. Dan says, "Hey, where are you? You are not at the store and it's already past 4 and we have one of the higher ups checking how things are going." Oh, I'm having lunch, I say. I'm not scheduled till 5 p.m., remember? Well, no, you are lying. Your shifts are always 4 till 8. I make sure of it. Get here. I can't stay as I have to try the food that will be served at my wedding and compose the menu. Oh, sorry, but I really can't. I have just ordered lunch and I'm waiting for it to be ready, and then I have to eat. I've asked you if the rota is correct, and you said it is, but in case if you don't believe me, I'll send you a screenshot and I'll see you at 5. I did send him a screenshot where I've questioned my times and he confirmed that they are correct. I haven't heard from him till I got back to the store. At the store, I see Dan talking to the higher up person. Dan notices me first, waves me over as soon as I sign in, and says he really needs to be somewhere else. He just needs to get to his office and get his coat. I nod and have a small talk with the higher up. Higher up says, "Oh, it was so nice of Dan to cover the start of your shift as you were having a family emergency. He's such a good and caring manager." Family emergency? Not sure what you're on about, but my shift has just started as per rota. The higher up is confused. He asks to see the rota, so I gladly show him the pictures Dan has posted on the group chat. Then higher up turns to me and another member of staff and asks if one of us is a team leader, and if not, when did we start? After finding out we're not team leaders and have started less than 12 weeks ago, the higher up gets visibly angry. He stops Dan as he was on his way to leave and tells him he cannot leave the premises as it is against the company's policy to leave employees who haven't been with the company for 12 weeks unattended or to close up, so he must stay. Otherwise, the company insurance is not valid and there will be a hefty fine. Dan has no option but to stay, meaning he was missing the food tasting. He wanted to call his fiancée, however, the higher-up has reminded him no phones during the shift and while on the store floor. So Dan couldn't even let him know who was texting him non-stop. While higher-up was there and while Dan was forced to do his job, I had a few more conversations with him and brought up all the things Dan failed to provide us for training on, and alongside with the lack of support in any progression meetings. So by 8 o'clock, higher-up was ticked with Dan and was organizing a meeting with him and extra training for him, which I don't think was paid, as Dan had to do it outside of work hours. He was also put on a close monitor for at least a month. As everyone was leaving at 8 p.m., I was slowly getting ready. Dan had tried to hurry me up, but I was mainly ignoring him. The store needs to be closed before 8:10, hurry up! Oh, but you scheduled me till 9 p.m. today. I can't leave before that as the system won't allow me to clock out. Well, you must leave as insurance does not cover us against theft or damage if there's someone else in the store after 8 p.m. We have to put the alarms on too. Sorry, but I really don't want to miss out on any money. You schedule me till 9, so I'll work till 9. What are you going to do? You need to leave. I can clean the display models and the island does look like it needs to be vacuumed. The higher-up was having the best time in the world. He was still there enjoying the show since he saw that Dan put me till 9 p.m. At some point, he gets tired of our back and forth and told Dan to cover me till 9 p.m. and stay in the store, and then change the hours in the system that I finished at 9 and I can go home. Dan has tried to argue, but the higher-up has pointed out that it was his mistake, and if something happens in the store, he will be the one responsible, as he should have checked the rotas beforehand. Dan has no choice but to follow the orders. From what I've heard, he left around 10 p.m. that day as the system wouldn't allow him to log in. His fiancée also left him a few years later. I don't know the reason why, but she took the house and the dog and saved money since she never married him. I've heard that Dan works as a personal growth coach, but he's not very successful at it either. Dang, Daniel, I mean, this guy, he had this idea in his system, he's going to trick the whole system, right? But no, OP actually knows the rules, knows what to do, brings that up to a higher up who's definitely going to come down on Dan, and then just backfires completely on Dan. This right here, as I say, textbook malicious compliance. OP knows the letter, knows the spirit, and they act accordingly properly, covering their butt and nailing their boss. Way to go, OP. Can't remove the charge? Well, I'll just use it then. Posted by eGrant03. In the early 2000s, when I first moved out on my own, I rented from a complex that charged you for assigned parking. It was an upcharge of $25 a month. If you didn't get assigned parking, you would have to fight for a space on the street. My apartment was in the back of the complex, and I was getting over a recent knee and ankle injury, so I opted for paid parking that was relatively close to my front door. My car was a junker, 3 years older than I am, but it ran semi-okay, and the heater worked. As a newly minted adult, well, I was happy to have it. About 3 months into my lease, my car went to the great scrap heap in the sky. I had gotten used to the local transit system and discovered a nearby store would drop off groceries for me. This was long before Walmart and other stores started doing it, so it was cheaper than figuring out a month's supply on the bus. So I opted not to replace my car and utilize the bus pass that my work reimbursed me for. I went to my leasing office and told them that I no longer needed the space and would you please remove the extra charge from my bill. The manager at the desk was new and had never been asked that before. She promised to look into it and let me know. I was naive and I figured it would be gone come next month. Nope, it was still there. I paid all but the parking space and called up the complex. Same girl. She said she was awaiting word from higher ups and offered me a credit for the charge as a one-time courtesy. I reminded her that I no longer owned a car. I hadn't just changed my mind. I told her that the space had been empty for close to a month now and that I won't be utilizing it. She said she understood loud and clear and would get it sorted by next month. 3 days before rent was due, she finally got back to me. Apparently, it was in my lease and couldn't be removed without breaking the lease and signing a new one. Even if I didn't move out, the lease breaking and initiation fees would be charged to me, and my rent would go up to the new current market value. This would be over $1,000, so it's not an option for someone freshly on their own. I kept the parking space on the lease. 3 weeks later, I was reviewing my lease to get the phone number for maintenance and noticed a clause for the parking space. Essentially, I could park, quote, a motorcycle, scooter such as a Vespa, car, truck, SUV, or trailer, end quote, in the space. Gears were turning. For me to be in compliance, I had to have wheels on anything parked in my space. So I went to my local version of Craigslist and I found a wheeled container similar to a shipping container. It wasn't cheap, but it was worth every cent. The complex offered storage sheds at an upcharge too. Being fresh out of high school, I didn't have much to store. My neighbor, though, did. I threw a lock on the unit and offered it to my neighbor for half the cost of a shed, $35 a month. He was able to move his stuff out of his storage unit where he was paying over $100 a month, and the container was available 24/7, 365. He was happy for the arrangement and paid several months in advance. The complex put several tow stickers for out of compliance on the trailer, but I called the tow company and faxed them a copy of the lease where it says trailers are allowed. The container was registered with the county as a utility trailer, so there's nothing they could do. They tried to fine me for improper parking, but again, I had proof that I was within my rights. They even offered to remove the charge for parking on my lease if I would relocate the container. With what my neighbor was paying, I could cover my water bill every month, so I declined. I stayed 18 months and sold the trailer to my neighbor when I moved out. He had to rent a car to relocate it to his assigned space, but he said it was worth the couple hundred he paid. He ended up saving over $1,000 a year renting from me. Other neighbors even started bringing in their own containers too, even if it meant getting a second space. Sheds were being vacated at such a large volume, the complex tried to give them away at 6 months free. Few took them up on it. The complex amended the new leases to exclude trailers, but they could do nothing about those that already had them in the spot. Instead of moving out and giving notice, renters would reassign their lease to new people so they could be grandfathered into the trailer clause. I drove by the facility 2 years or so after I moved out, going to a friend's for Thanksgiving. The complex had been sold to a new owner and changed their name. But wouldn't you know, there were still about a dozen wheeled shipping containers parked in that lot. Oh man, I love this because you go in thinking it's going to be some MC, right, dealing that justice, and it turns out you're making money, costing them money, saving your neighbor money, and then complying maliciously with the rules. They changed the whole freaking agreement. 2 years later, it's a whole new company under it. Like, I didn't expect this to go nuclear. I just read a story the other day that went from MC to nuclear, and it's like, okay, OP, you surprised me. You snuck one up on me and you got me. You just totally took these rules and just dodge, dip, duck, dive, and dodge all around them. That's just incredible. There's nothing more to say. That's incredible. Karen tried to stab me with a screw, so I did this. Click the video on your screen to get this insane video that was fun to voice act, and I'll see you there.